Hello, everybody. Spirit of 420 here because everything I do is so 420, including just constantly moving forward. Not always. How was that? I'll say it like that, and I'll get back to that here in a minute. What's up, Joe? You never gave up on me, man. I appreciate it. I nearly gave up on myself, and since the topic is to be determined, let me just say this. 2 nights ago, I told y'all, and I know the beginning of it didn't go well, and I think somebody even left shortly right away because I was being all down and gloomy doomy. You gotta give me some room. Hopefully you didn't stop watching altogether, but just know this: the guy that started this channel and the guy that was moving forward and having a great time with this channel is back. Now I'm going to be doing as best I can to finally get some content update in the sense of intros and outros, but I really have been busting my ace. Been busting my, thank you, man. I love you, Joe. Been busting my ass on this new project, and I've got to get it. I'm nearly there. And one of the things that's been happening is I've started a lot of things and not finished them. So, you know, in my opinion, if I haven't created a new intro and a new countdown for this season, well, it's no big deal. You still see the new artwork. You see the summer artwork. I promise it will happen. I can tell you literally it was not laziness. It was just straight depression, right? And here's the thing. I don't know if this is the Lexapro or not. And I really don't. I know some people are going to be like, well, what the fuck do you think it is? I don't know what it is. And I can't. Oh, well, I do know what it is. Excuse me. This is why. What I don't know is what made me able to do it when you understand the story. All right. And maybe it is the Lexapro. I just don't feel that way because it was something I heard that clicked in me. And that's the way things are for me. So being that I have an appointment with my psychiatrist, I'm probably going to look to wean myself off of this. And she'll probably not want to be like, you're just showing progress, but I know who I am. I never did take a hit of this. This is a fat ass. Babe, if you're watching, text me the name of it. I just got it today. It's a 1 grammer. You can see that it's a 1 grammer. It's one of the lowest ones I've ever gotten when it comes to getting these carts. This one's 70% THC. But I got to tell you, it has this beautiful, just absolute fruity flavor, and it tastes wonderful. So it's so smooth too, so smooth. All right, so let me put a top on that. 2 days ago, because it actually happened 2 days ago, right? Just like, I don't want to say minutes before I started streaming, but shortly before the stream started, or shortly before I started the stream, and I started late that night. I started at 8:20, and I was a little bit late tonight. I do apologize for being late, but I am about to make a new. I've been talking about it for a while, and I'm finally going to do it because I want to. But once I have the new intro and once I have the new content created, I am going to be creating a new schedule. Probably going to go a little something like. Well, you know what? I'll save it as a surprise. And let me get back to it. So a couple days ago, and just to remind everybody out there, I had twin sons, right? He was a twin. I still have twin sons. One of them has passed. They had 2 guys that live with them that are like brothers, right? And they have become like sons to me, particularly one who has been in my life now for ever since July of 2018. It doesn't sound like that long ago, but that's, it's over 5 years now. It's been exactly 5 years, just recently, funny enough, because we're almost in August. So this kid, let's call him Clint. To keep their privacy, I wasn't that impressed with him when I first met him. Technically, he came into my life well more. It was about 5.5 years ago. He started living under my roof 5 years ago. He doesn't live here now, but during that time, he became like a son. So, back to the long story that's going to be short. When I first met this kid, he didn't impress me. And then when he moved in, he really didn't impress me. Just to give you an idea, I have to give you a little bit of backstory before I tell you what happened. And how he didn't impress me was, he's like, now remember, I met this kid at 18, okay? Like freshly 18. He turned 18 in March. And when I say met, I really met this kid when he moved in with me. And this is like late July, August, when he said what I'm about to tell you, right? So this kid, this 18-year-old, just moves into my house, right? Good friends with my 18-year-old twins. They're just months apart. And, obviously, like any father type dude, I wanted to just find out about the kid. You know what I mean? Wanted to just, get an idea of, what his goals are, who he is, where he's trying to go. Like, how long are you going to be slumming under my roof? In the shortest of terms, right? I mean, no disrespect when I say that, but I mean, it's just the simplest of terms. It's what you want to know, right? When you're the one flipping the bill. And I had agreed to it, so I knew what I got myself into. I knew what I was in for and completely aware, and I was okay with it. That said, we're sitting there on the couch, and I'll try to make it quick, but he's like, I was like, what do you want to do with your life? He's like, nothing. I was like, well, how do you plan on making money? Nothing. So I was like, so you, what are you trying? It boils down. He's like, I want to get paid to do nothing. And I was like, oh my God, man. And here's the thing. This is why it didn't impress me. He was fucking serious. It wasn't a joke. He was legitimately serious. And don't get me wrong. I think all of us like that, but you don't tell somebody that when they're trying to get to know you, number one. And it's definitely not your life's ambition is to go, yeah, I'd like to do nothing and get paid for it. So he totally didn't impress me at all. Well, full circle, he ended up living here under the roof for a little over 2 years. I think that's right. Yes. No, wait. God, has it already been that short? So I guess he lived here for, sorry, y'all, I'm trying to think. Was here 18, 19, 20 was the pandemic, right? 20 was the pandemic. So he was here from July of 18 to October of 19. So a little over a year. But anybody who knows life, right, knows this statement and understands it, but you never really get to know anybody until they live with you, right? That's when you really get to know them. So you get to know somebody extremely well. By the way, I'm filthy. I didn't take a shower. I didn't even have time to brush my teeth before the show. Not that I don't brush my teeth. I didn't have time to brush my teeth specifically before the show tonight. It's just because extremely busy and had a lot going on. And I was out getting carts for essentially my daughter-in-law, who was Sky's love interest at the time of his passing, and she's become like a daughter, like literally. When sometimes people are like, how do you deal with this, and how are you coping? Because they know I'm the kind of person that says with every bad thing, comes good, and sometimes it takes a while. But that one was immediate. Like right away, I lost Sky, but gained 2 daughters, one that's just like Skylar, and one that's like the exact opposite. Of course, the exact opposite is the one that was his love interest. And just for those of you who don't know, the one that, before performed life-saving measures. Oh, that was a hell of a belt. The first one on the scene there we go. To try to help Sky and try to save Sky that day was the one that is just like him by no coincidence. The only difference is she's like 2 or 3 years older than him. That's it. So Clint, it's over a year later. By the time he left, I truly love that boy with all my heart, just as much as I love my own sons. I got to know him, got to know how he had a family, but quite frankly, the reason that he bonded with us is because he felt like we were more of a family than he'd ever have. And in fact, what he now tells me, and this really got me, he said this well before he moved out, but inside of just a year, what is that year? July, so August, September, October. So we're talking about, I had basically 15 months exposure on this kid living with him. And in that time, even earlier than that, because he told me this before he moved out, he said, I taught him what family meant. So keep that in mind. This is the kid that said that, right? And he's not even blood, but he said, I taught him what family meant. I think his exact words is, you taught me what it means to be family. I think that's what he said. And it wasn't just me at the time too. He was like, you did. And then he came back and he said, not just you, Pops, but you and your boys and the interaction of your family entirely, your wife, your mom, all of it. So, and I totally got what he meant. Right. But it really touched me. It almost, I'm almost jerking off a tear right now. Hold on. There's a comment. Right. It was one of the greatest moments in my life, to be quite honest. And after he said that, it was funny because it was I think it was right before that. He had a really bad day at work, and he came home, and he was just in tears, and I'd never seen him in tears. And he even told me, like, when he was crying and I was holding him, he was stiff as a board, and it was like one of those cries where he didn't want to be vulnerable. And I found out, like, he's like, I never cry in front of anybody, that's for sure. And I was like, dude, you got to let that shit out, man. It's okay to cry. Cry is people think it's a bad thing, and it's funny because I'm now 51, so I'm no young pup. And I have been told since I can remember, doctors telling me that crying is a release. Now, obviously, for me, I started to go see doctors quite early due to my life. I was stressed out by 5, and by 5 years old, the stress was causing ulcers in my stomach. And so they wanted me to relax. Well, then you're going to, excuse me, you're going to learn about these things. You're going to learn about them at a younger age. And what I mean by that, they told me to cry. I don't know how much crying I had done up until 5, but I know one of the things they said is have a good cry because it releases so much. It releases, it's no different than anything else that you learn about. There's endorphins involved, and it literally makes you feel better, period. It's a release of yuck and a intake of happy, period. Okay. And even, happy tears, that's why there's, happy tears are tears are when your body is so overwhelmed with emotion, either side of the scale. So that's the thing. It's not when you're like in the middle, you're not going to cry. If you're torn and you don't really give a shit or whatever, obviously you're not going to cry. But if you're either really sad or if you're really happy, you'll cry. And if you're like my wife, and I mean no disrespect if you're watching, hon, if you're really mad, then you'll cry. She doesn't like, if I'm really mad, then I'll yell and scream. If she's really mad, then she's going to cry because that's what happened with her. And I keep, I tell people, but who we are. Who we are is a direct reflection of how we were raised, right? And with her parents, See, my parents yelled and screamed. Literally, they yelled and screamed when they got mad, and the crying only happened afterwards. Or, I'm sorry, and that's another story. Whereas her parents, right, they would just yell and scream at her, and not even yell and scream. It was more of a bereavement and putting her down, and so she would cry. Period. So that's these are all learned behaviors from our youth, but they're learned psychological behaviors. So what a horrible relationship, just on a side note, I know it's a tangent, but what a horrible relationship we have found ourselves in. The two people love each other, but one screams when he's angry, the other cries. One hates to hear people scream, and the other one hates to see someone cry. So it literally, when we get going, we're just feeding off of one another. Stop crying. Oh, I can't. Yes, you can. I mean, you get it. So nonetheless, and I love you, babe. We'll make it. We always do. So this kid, you thought I had forgotten it. This kid of mine who has become my son, and now you understand a little bit more. What's the word I'm looking for? You have a little more understanding and insight as to how close we have become, right? Now, skipping forward, he and Sky moved out first. And in fact, Sky's twin brother stayed here. He stayed here. I'm trying to remember. I think it was for almost another year. And I think I actually got it wrong. Sky and Clint moved out in December. So it was 17 months. 17 months. Almost a full year and a half. I remember that now. I remember because my father came and visited at the time, and he got here he got here for to stay for like a good month, and he got here like the week before Christmas, like around the 19th of December, and Sky had, or maybe around the 20th or whatever, but Sky had just moved out, like literally just missed him. We were all, it was kind of sucked because he had to do what he had to do. What I mean by that is there was a time frame, so Sky had to get out, but Dad wasn't going to be in until that. So needless to say, we still had a great Christmas, and Sky and my father got to see each other quite a bit that Christmas. But Clintock, not even close to his name if she knew his real name. It's funny. What do we got here? Skittles before a hit on the bong is epic. Yes. Love. I'm not a big Skittle, but I think anytime you have one of your favorite candies right before you have a bong rip, it's a good time, right? So they moved out first, and I only bring that up because they became really close, and that's where this matters. Now, obviously, him and his twin were really close, but they fought like cats and dogs. And Clint and Sky did not fight. I mean, they fought, but they didn't fight all the time. There wasn't that struggle. And in fact, it got to the point where Clint was almost like Sky's shadow and doing everything he did. We would even pick on him about it because, it doesn't matter. My point is he was very, and when they say when you act like somebody, it's what's the word? It's like an honor. It's not the word. It's I can't remember what it is, but it's like a sign of respect, right? Because you like them so much that you want to be like them. And funny enough, he was really following a lot in Skylar's footsteps. Sky got a dog, so he got a dog. Sky would do something, and then he would do it, and it kept following. Sky was a mechanic, and so he started helping him on the weekends and learning to be a mechanic. And it's very respectful. I don't mean in a bad way. He was finding focus. For me, it was awesome to watch because here was a kid that literally, when I met him, said he didn't give a shit about anything. He really didn't, and he had no focus. Please keep that in mind because he had no focus. He had no ambition. Wanted to go nowhere, right? I told you everything happens for a reason. You have to understand that. You really have to understand that. And he was becoming more and more like Sky every day. In fact, it actually, being quite frank, and I'll try not to go off on a huge tangent, but it did cause issue when Sky's twin finally moved out, which was around October. That's why I was thinking October of the next year. So it was like 10 months later. So they had 10 months. I mean, y'all get what that is. That's 10 months, man. You really, you form a real close bond. Even the only time you don't is if you have a roommate that you completely don't know at all and they don't hang out. But usually, most of us, when we have a roommate, it's a friend. So the friendship becomes even more because you tend to hang out with one another. On top of that, Sky ended up getting him a job and other things. So then they were working together. They were going to work together, right? So they were really spending time together and extremely close. And of course, twin was not. It's funny because originally Clintock and Skylar's twin were the really close friends. That's how it was when he moved out here. When Clint moved out here, it was because he was brother B's or brother A's best friend, and there was another one. There was another kid that moved out here, and that was Sky's best friend, right? So it definitely, let's just say it bothered brother A because he felt like there was what's that word, favoritism. He felt like not only was he, because like I say, he and Sky fought like cats and dogs, right? And then Sky and Clint were getting along great. So that was only making it worse because then Sky and his brother, his twin brother, were fighting even more. Plus, he's getting along with Clint, which now caused friction between Clint and brother A. It's just, man, let's just call him Alpha from here on out, okay? So that caused problems between Alpha and Clint. It's just, it's normal shit, but as a father, when you're outside watching it and you try to tell them that, like, no, it's not, this isn't normal. I'm like, no, it is absolutely fucking normal. This shit has been going on since motherfucking cavemen, best friends and brothers and shit. It's some of the most basic human shit, those relationships, if you will. So, short story, even longer. Oh, I missed the trash can. So that's awesome. When Alpha moved out, he moved out. Technically, it's funny because technically Sky lived in 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, it was 4 places. So Alpha moved in right before they moved to what was Clint and Sky's third place, right? But it was only the second place for Alpha. Plus, it was, and they had to, they did the move almost immediately because the place that they had when Alpha moved out finally was only a 2-bedroom. So, which they didn't mind. They just turned the living room, and we've all been there, but turned the living room into a bedroom. Literally, turned it into a bedroom suite. They didn't put a curtain up or anything like that because they were 3 guys and didn't really care. But the bedroom or the living room was literally his bedroom. So, where was I? I'll catch up. Oh, by the time they got to the place where they are now, I will say this: things had pretty much settled down. There was not nearly as much fighting between Alpha and Sky. Although I will say Clinton and Sky were as close as ever, but Clinton and Alpha were as close as they've ever been as well. Probably not as close as they've ever been. I shouldn't say that. They probably have been closer before, and I know they're closer now, obviously due to Sky's passing. But here was the point. Uh, they had gotten extremely close, and they were, a solid group of brothers. You know what I mean? So when Sky passed, I was having a lot of trouble. And what I mean by that is I shouldn't say that. When Sky first passed, obviously I had a lot of trouble, but I quickly picked myself up right away. And maybe it's because I was the father and I had other boys. My mother and my wife, I knew we're not handling it well, particularly my mother, right? And I'll get into that here in a minute. And there's a part, we do what we have to do, and everything happens for a reason. So I think a part of me literally just put it off. You know what I mean? And what I mean by that is put off just how much it was affecting my state of mind and my ability to carry on the day. I was just putting it off. Didn't have a job, but I was focused on the show, focused on all my focus and anything I had was on Twitter and YouTube, and Twitch. Twitch, not that much. There's no way to really post anything. Anyway, maybe there is. I don't know. I haven't learned it. Maybe I will. Who knows? We're not going to get into that right now. What I can tell you is I even knew then that I was kind of putting it off and allowing myself to dive into other things to keep me really from that, right? And I think that Alpha was doing the same thing, and in some ways, my mother too, because what happened is about, I want to say about, I guess 6 months after Sky's passing, that's when the depression really started to hit for me, and I watched it, hit with my mom, and I started to watch it hit with Alpha, and I think it was because, again, at 6 months, maybe it's the time, maybe it's realization or whatever, I don't know, but around 6 months, you definitely understand, like, he's not coming back, right? And 6 months have gone by, and if you've, even though I was doing what I was supposed to do, and there was a part of me that was being stagnant, right? And between being stagnant for 6 months and all the other things, for me, it ignited, a straight depression that, if you've truly ever been in a depression, I don't care who you are, then you can feel it, And by the way, I know I haven't shaved, but that doesn't matter. Like, hopefully you can see it on me that it's different. Because once you're out of it, you also know, like, when you're, it's almost like quitting smoking. Like, the moment that you finally stop quitting, it's just different after that. You know that you're going to be doing this from now on. The only difference is when you quit smoking, you Jones and you become an asshole. To me, when you come out of depression, you're a nice guy. The beginning of the depression is kind of like quitting smoking. There you go. The end of the depression is when you finally have a cigarette. No, I'm teasing. I'm not going to have another. Nonetheless, 6 months later, and that's when the depression really hit for me. And I know it was happening for Alpha because, I'd go over there and the dishes weren't done. I mean, it was just depression all over. And there's a lot of other things that quite frankly, that were on top of him that would allow him to be depressed, on top of his brother. There's legal stuff that he's going through. I won't even go into all that. Job stuff, job loss. It's just, the horrible three, if you will. What I mean is there's always three big things, right? So, needless to say, he, like myself, and even my mother, have all just really been sitting on our ass for the last 3 months, and I mean really hardcore, right? Trying to give you an example, like just I wake up now. I'm a stander, so I stand all day no matter what, right? But I would wake up and I would just stand basically in one spot, and other than smoking pot and watching whatever was on TV and doing dabs and maybe talk. But I mean, I just basically just stood there all day until it was time to go to bed. I even stand when I eat, so whatever. And I did nothing, right? And here's the thing: that's what sucks about depression is the longer you're in it, the easier it is to stay in it because you are feeling more and more worthless the longer you're depressed because you're not doing anything, you're not productive, you're not moving forward, right? And it was funny because finally, like I say, this all happened just 2 days ago. This kid who once had no ambition and who had once done nothing to impress me is the very kid and the very soul that pulled me out of one of the deepest depressions I've ever been in. And, the funny thing is, he got on the phone with me. What is today? Today's Friday, Wednesday. And he's like, he tells me how him and Alpha got into a horrible fight. And in fact, he says, yeah, except I was the role of Alpha and he was the role of Sky, right? So Sky's brother was being like Sky and Joe was being like Alpha was his point. Doesn't matter, Clint, whatever. Was being like Alpha. And he screamed. They were in a screaming match the way that we do as people. And he just screamed they were screaming at the top of their lungs, and what he finally said to him was, it's just not fair. It's not fair to me. Right? And Joe wasn't talking to me. Sorry, it's whatever. Wasn't talking to me. Right? He was talking to Alpha. And that's all it took. I heard it and I was like, it hit me like an epiphany, like a bolt of lightning, whatever you want to call it. That I was not being fair to my family. And it was time to be fair. It was time to no longer sit around and, I don't want to say this in the wrong way, but sit around on your pity pot when in fact it's, most people would even say it's not a pity pot. Your son died. Yes, my son died, but even if he were here, he would tell you can't sit around like that, right? That's not what we do. If we did that, then the whole world would stop because people are dying every second. How many people died have we talked? How many people have died as I've talked, right? So it only makes sense that you can't sit around like that forever, right? And when Clint said that to me, when he was telling me the story, it dawned on me that, myself, Sky's twin, and my mother, we're all kind of like if you look at a family tree, right? And Sky's here, we're like the one steps away. I'm his father. That's his grandmother who has raised him, since birth, literally since birth. Been there even more than his own real mother or even my wife now because she wasn't there until 2007. And then twin brother, right? So these are the closest people, blood. And then, his younger brothers who are blood and my wife and Clint all very special and all just as close to them emotionally, right? I'm not saying that at all, but they're kind of like just a slight step away if you're looking at the family tree, just next on the prong. And it just dawned on me that I say all this because for me, it was my wife talking to me, and maybe she never said those exact words, or she didn't say them the exact way. Maybe it's part of the issues that we are having right now where, and I told her, I think we're having trouble hearing one another. What I mean by hearing, I'm not talking about like physically hearing. I'm talking about we're having trouble listening to each other anymore. Like, once you've been with somebody for a while, even if they're your child, your spouse, your parent, you tune them out and don't act like you don't know what I'm talking about. I know all of you do, right? You start to tune them out. And, when you do that, until you figure out how to retune and hear them again, unfortunately, sometimes it takes a third party or an outside party to say something. Like many times, quite honestly, a therapist, right, that says something, you're like, oh, okay, you say it. My wife's been saying this for 6 months, but I didn't believe her. But you said it, so it's okay. It's good. And that may sound stupid, but there's a lot of truth to it, right? Because when it's like even though your loved ones are the ones that keep you in check and you keep them in check, you do it for such a long time that you really don't listen to the checks anymore. So it's not until somebody else says it blatantly. I love it. It's like that old Seinfeld episode where George is like, oh, you could have done a lot better than him. And the lady says later on, she's like, somebody comes along and just articulates it so perfect, right? And sometimes it's extremely simple. It's not like that is not some complex statement that George made, nor is the one of it's not fair to me, right? That's an extremely normal, everyday statement. But it hit me. And the moment it hit me, it changed. And in fact, yesterday I had the best day. I won't say that I had the best day since Sky's death. I had a great day today. When I'm saying best day, the best day emotionally, mentally, productively, physically, it was a great day. Got a lot done, moved forward in a lot of ways, in many, many ways. And it was just really a great day. And it was funny because I've known, like all these messages were hitting me right after Sky died, and they kept me going. I just wasn't doing them. I was preaching them, but having trouble executing, right? Which again is very normal. And I take my responsibility, but I mean, you move on. But it was, you'll get whatever you want. You just got to work for it. Hard work always wins the battle. There was multiple messages, and I was like, okay. So I knew what I had to do, but again, I'm trying to find my mouse. There we go. Looks like there's a comment. Yeah, love you, brother. Where was I at? Shite. Pardon me, I'm trying to remember. Well, you know what? While I think about it, I have this other joint right here. And before I do that, I got this cot right here. I need to hit him. Whenever I smoked one joint and been hitting the carpet hissing on. Also, let me say this. There's no regrets. I'll just say this real quick. Everything happens for a reason. I have no regrets as to what's transpired over the last 9 months, right? And I finally say that because at the time, just on a side note, I had started to regret ever living out here, ever moving out here. I'm sure you can imagine why. I thought if I hadn't moved out here, Sky played that whole. And I know everybody does that when it comes to any kind of loss, like anything, whether it's losing a car, losing a cell phone, losing a loved one, losing a relationship. if I hadn't done this, I might say, don't play that record. It's horrible. It's not worthy. We all do it because it's human nature, but it doesn't get you anywhere. Regret doesn't get you anywhere, right? To regret is one of the biggest time wasters and energy wasters you can ever do, because you are not going to change what's already transpired. That's not going to happen. It's not going to change. What you can do is be different in this very moment, which will change your future. And you can't even guarantee what the future will bring. We all know that. But we know that whatever you're doing right now, that's the only thing you have, is what you're doing right now. What you're doing right now and how you live right now determines your future and how good or bad it will be. And understand that good or bad doesn't mean that it's going to be all hunky-dory if it's good and shitty if it's bad. Good means that ultimately you have more good things happening than bad, but there's always the balance. Bad means you have, or are noticing at least, all the bad shit and hardly any of the good. And that's when that's when it really feels bad, because you don't even see the good when it happens. Right? And that's kind of where I was for a while. But I had to go through it. I had to do those questions and say those things and do all that to get to the other side. As one of my very good friends always talks about, it's the ones who have gone down the darkest roads and gone down the darkest paths that shine the brightest and walk in the most light. And it's not that you're better if you're shining brighter. That has nothing to do with it, because I don't believe anybody's better than anybody else, and I don't. If you're shining brighter, you're just having a more effect on a larger scale. That's all there is to it, right? And everybody has their piece of the puzzle. There are, some people are like, you're supposed to grow up and be a janitor. Yes, there's people that are supposed to grow up and be a janitor. In this life, in this time, yes, it's exactly what they're supposed to fucking experience. Not everybody is supposed to be president. Not everybody's supposed to be a big fucking star, That is not the path for everyone. Plus, everyone thinks that everybody else's idea of happiness is theirs. Maybe the rude awakener, or what one person finds to be a happy life, another person may find to be the dullest thing, and vice versa, which is why we also hear that saying, one man's treasure is another, or one man's trash is another man's treasure, right? So, back to what I was saying, and then I'm going to light that joint. I got to wait. Oh, that's not standing up. There, I'll put it up here. Hold on. Just hold your phones, man. Hold your horses. You can definitely see where that, I could just totally, it's funny because that is an actual saying, right, that people say. But have you ever noticed in a Western, you never hear, hold your horses? You don't, I don't see them hear them using it in the West when, like in these Westerns, but that's exactly where it fucking came from. It didn't come from the 70s. Hey, hold your horses, Jimmy. I got to get this Toyota here going. That's not how it went down. So, excuse me. There we goes. What was me going to say? Oh, okay. It really doesn't much matter. I'll come back around to it. The whole point is, and I'll just kind of come to this, it was remarkable to me that the very kid that I literally had no respect for at one point had gotten not only so close, but then the one to give the simple words of wisdom that flipped the switch for me to go, okay, it's time to stop being unfair to my younger boys, my wife, my mother, Sky's twin brother, all of my friends, all of my, everything. When you get depressed, and let me say, when you get depressed, it's like there's a hold button that the person in the depression just pushes a hold button. Unfortunately, the world keeps going while you're just sitting there on hold, So when you do come out of it, although people are happy, you got catch up. You know, quite frankly, I've got to work double time now. And that was what, remember, I told you I'd figure it out. But part of what it was hard work. And you'll get anything. And that's the truth. If you want something, you can get it. You just have to work for it. Obviously, you know, I literally just talked about this earlier today, and I'm not talking about the ridiculousness of like Key and Peele, where I think that anything is possible if you believe it. What I'm talking about by anything being possible is that anything realistically possible, and even maybe a little bit beyond that, because I guarantee you somebody thought the Wright brothers were idiots, right? Somebody thought the first dude to go up in a hot air balloon was a fucking dumbass. No doubt they did, right? My only point is, if you believe it and you work hard for it, you can achieve anything you set your mind to. I didn't get that when I was younger, you know what I mean? And the mind is a tricky thing, you know. I know for a fact that I've come out of the depression because I don't have enough time in the day again, right? When you're in a depression, bedtime can't come fast enough, right? And I know my mom may be worried because I slept late tonight. That's because I was up until 2:30, you know? And most of it was actually working and being productive. I know because I texted her at like I think it was 1:50 or something. She's like, "That is great. Go to bed." I was like, "What are you doing awake?" Anyway, it's the simple fact: when you're depressed, you know, you can't. Bedtime can't come fast enough, and when you, at least for me, when I'm feeling normal, there's not enough hours in the day because I have so many things that I want to get done. I have so many things that I want to do, right? So it's a fine line, if you will, but it is literally nothing more. And I know people think this is crazy, but it's nothing more than like a flip of a switch. And now you understand why I said in the beginning, I don't really attribute. I've been down this road before. This is not new. I do not attribute the epiphany or change moment, whatever, you know, whatever you want to call it, whatever y'all want to call it, right? Light bulb moment, right? I don't feel like you have a light bulb moment because I've been taking it just doesn't make sense to me that because I've been taking a pill for a while and increased it, that, you know, right at the end of like 27 days after I got an increased dosage, all of a sudden, like a fucking switch, it flips and I get back out of it. And I know some people are like, I don't believe that it's like a switch and it flips. Well, you know, I don't give a fuck if you believe it or not. It is. Because once you make a decision not to do something, it's no different than like when you make a decision not to smoke anymore. If you stick to that decision, you'll stay there. You might have a relapse or two, you know, but you're not going to go back to smoking if you have truly quit. You know, for instance, by the way, I think tomorrow is 9 weeks since I've had a cigarette. So, yeah. Even during a depression, the one thing I managed to do was quit smoking and lose 10 pounds. Fuck all of y'all. You can do whatever you want to do. I didn't want to smoke anymore. It had nothing to do with my depression. I was just tired of smoking, right? But quite honestly, and if I ever go back, it's just going to be a relapse. But the depression thing is the same way. Once you make a decision, it's a decision. We have that kind of ability, right? It's funny, people doubt it because you watch people every day make a decision on the whim to go here, go there, take a trip, fucking, you know, go on a hot air balloon or fucking skydive, and they make those decisions on a whim. So if you can make that kind of decision on a whim, then why can't you change your state of mind on a whim? If something finally just gets you in the right way and it makes you look at it the way you needed to look at it to no longer be over here, but now be over here? Well, people who were Democrats become Republicans. People who were Christian become Islamic. Shit happens, man. If all those examples can be true, then I don't find it far-fetched that as fast as you can go into a depression, you can come out of it just as fast and even know that you did come out of it. Like, feel it like you walked into a new room. You know what I mean? Sorry, I'm trying to find a way to get that giant out here because I got this big one. I was smoking. I realized that I still had quite a bit of left on roaches, and then now I don't have anything to drink. That fucking sucks. I'm totally out of any kind of liquid, and my mouth is getting dry. I'm going to have to stop the show soon, and I'm going to have to say goodbye. So I want to thank you, Clint. I truly appreciate you saying what you said because it did flip that switch. Again, as I was saying, I'm not going to be perfect. I'm going to have moments. I have a hell of a whopper, whatever you want to call it, to tell you folks, but I do not want to keep going. I've already been on for about 53 minutes, and I've got to do some other things. What I will say is, if you're in a depression, the one thing that I didn't do was give up. And what I mean by that is I didn't, even though if you talk to me, you might could say that I did. And what I mean by that is I would have days where I'm like, I just don't get it, blah, blah, blah. I still don't get the world. I drove around all day today with my wife and my youngest, as a matter of fact, in the car. And I was like, I do not understand fucking people today. I finally get that. This is another conversation, but I finally get that old man thing. Like, I don't want to be bitter, but I can totally get how someone in their 70s looks around and they're angry because they just don't recognize the fucking world they're in. Like, this ain't shit. Not a damn thing is the way it was when I was growing up. So I could easily see being a very, angry old motherfucker. It wouldn't be hard. Like grumpy old man. I'm sure most people have seen that, but just fucking bitching about everything, right? I'm already doing that at times. I know I am. So I'm trying not to, but it's just funny. Like, you're like, dude, you can't go to a drive-in without encountering 3 stupid people because you have to deal with 3 stupid people to get in and out of there. How is that? Can't one of them be of higher intelligence? Just one, Can't go to I went to go pick up a prescription and had to deal with the manager. Color like, excuse me, sir, have you been having palpitations? I was like, isn't this what my doctor should be asking me, not my pharmacist, who, in my opinion, is kind of like a doctor's bitch in comparison. I know. Is a pharmacist even a doctor? I don't think they are. I think they just go to a school, separate thing, and they don't have to go to school as long, right? Because they just have to learn what drugs are. Maybe I'm wrong. Who gives a shit? I'll tell you one thing. If I was a doctor, I would sure as hell let my pharmacist know. I think, yes, sir. Like, the pharmacist is not going to be like, okay, so, come here, pal. Right? It's going to be a different attitude when you're the pharmacist and the guy on the other side knows more about the drugs than you are currently dealing, right? So I have a feeling that's a bit of a funny, whatever the word is. Hold on a second. All right. I know he's trying to find out what's going on, but it's okay. I'll get it back. It's just a text message, y'all. That's all. This is nothing more than a text message. That's it. What time is it, baby? What time is it? What time is it? Oh shit! It's almost a quarter till. All right, I got another story that I will tell y'all. Today is Saturday, so Monday. Yeah, that's right, Monday. You'll like it. I promise. It's a good one. It happened last night, and it involves the police. So there you go. It's always a good story when the police are involved, right? And here's the nice thing. By the time I talk to y'all on Monday, there may be more to the story. So tune in to find out what happened with Spirit. I did not get in trouble with the police, by the way. I will tell you, I will give you this much. I'm the one that called the police. That's all I'll say. So come back Monday. You'll find out the whole story. It's honestly quite funny. And in fact, I'm going to try to do it right and have some video, because I have video of the incident. And you got to see and hear this video to believe it, because it's fucking hysterical. All right. So, holy schmook. I love each and every one of you. I want to give a special shout out to Joe. Oh, I kept using your name. I got confused while I was telling the story, but I didn't want to worry about dealing with it. Just a special shout out to you, brother, because I really do appreciate the support that you have given. I won't say blind support at all, because it's anything but blind. And no, not but blind, but blind. By the way, I do hope that you're recovering quite well. I can only imagine that you are. Otherwise, I'm sure I would have heard different by now. On a side note, what has happened with what used to be, let's just say it in the same, I find it by no coincidence. I don't believe in coincidence. I really don't. And I know you'll be like, oh, come on, that nothing. The two don't have anything to do. It's almost the same, day that Sky died, that Ding Dong took over what marks the spot, right? And it has taken that same amount of time for him to take what was something incredible and great and just dismantle it. Like it's literally like the Hoover Dam, and he's down at the bottom just removing everything that is considered foundation. I wonder how long this thing is going to last. I find it ironic, because I know the guy that sold it. I don't mean I know him personally, but I'm sure that he was very happy with his payday, right? I'm sure he was, no doubt. But do you think he would have been willing to actually do it if he thought for a minute that this is what would have happened? Tweet, tweet. Anyway, 'twill never be again. So it is what it is. I love all of you folks. I hope that you have a wonderful and blessed weekend. I will be back on Monday. I will continually be in a better mood, I promise. As I did say on the last show, tell stories and you can have stuff, but if I have nothing nice to say, then I have nothing to say at all, right? And if I really want to bitch and moan, I give you my word, I'll do that on a recorded video, where by the time I have the special effects and cutting and editing and all that shit, it really, it's not nearly as angry as it's fucking too loud. It's not, I promise. I've tried it a couple times, and it takes all the flair out of it. That's why if I don't do it live, then it's not the same thing. So, I love each and every one of you. You guys are all very special to me. I know you may not realize that, but each person that takes the time to even get to, follow me a little bit and get to know me or subscribe, whatever, means a lot. I will say this. I do need more subscribers. I need 14 so that I can give a few people some things, give them away, and got 6 total gifts ready to give away for people. If I get 14 more subscribers and hit 250, then I will absolutely hold true to my word. So please remember to not just like that. I know I'm telling you, like the stupid little thing right around here in this area. Not only like that, please hit that little thing. I would appreciate it. And also please share. I'm at the point where, you know, I'm still going to do all the other stuff that I love doing. Don't get me wrong, but I really would like this to become self-sufficient, if nothing more, and pay for itself. And you folks don't know how much it costs, and that's fine. I get it. I don't want you to, but it would be nice if it at least paid for itself. So with that said, have a blessed weekend. Have a lifted weekend. Have a wonderful Sunday tomorrow. I hope you all get to spend it with family. I know I will be spending it with family and doing what I love. And I will see you folks Monday. Oops, I got to get over here on the right page. Please remember what I keep telling you at the end of pretty much every video. The fact that you are you, the fact that you are unique, that is what makes you special. There is nobody else like you. And 8 billion fucking people, you're the only one. And nobody else thinks like you, thinks for you, or knows your thoughts. That makes you special. So keep that in mind. You're awesome. I love each and every one of you, and I will see you on Monday. Peace.
I switch here, I'm a strange fuck. Consist on ain't something I could say well. Throw my change into the wishing for a change well. Wish a day is swell life for the next come. And when the next come, pretend that it's the best one. Like I ain't even gonna try and say that to the next one.